Hi there, Maggie. That's better. How to calm your mind. Wonderful. Okay, everybody. I'm broadcasting. Your private conversations are being transmitted to the world. There we go, showing. Let's get rid of that. Okay. Now let's try that. So theoretically, there we go. So let's tilt it down a little bit. Okay. So let's get going. Okay, let's see who's online. Nobody online yet. They'll pop up in a minute, I imagine.
This is a lovely space for that.
It is fantastic space here, everyone. Are you all happy? Does anybody not want to be on video at all? You want to not be on video? Because I just thought I'd spin this round so that people can see the space like that. Do one of these 306 wave. There we go. Right, a bit wobbly, but there you go. Right. I think I've got myself back after a fashion. Maybe we need to move out a bit. Yeah, so things that are happening. So this coming Saturday, for those of you who you know who you are, you get the 2-hour workshops free of charge. So there's not going to be a drop in this coming Saturday for people other than the regular group. But for everybody else, there's access to the first 2-hour mini workshop on the Meditation Superpowers course, which is calmness. And that happens to be the topic for the first half of this month as well. So then there's another 3, so basically I'm using this Saturday morning slot for the 2-hour mini workshops, which make up the Meditation Superpowers course. So the mini workshops are calmness, focus, relaxation, mindfulness. And I've explained all of that and the reasons for it over the course of the last week or two, so I won't belabor the point. And so if you're interested in that, meditationsuperpowers.com online. Then I've got this coming week, the 6th, 7th and 8th, there's no public training. So that means the Tuesday Chantry class isn't happening, the Wednesday evening online class isn't happening, and the Thursday lunchtime, the Thursday 11 AM meditation in the park's not happening. Reason for this is that once every month I shall either have the 2 weekend sessions cancelled or the 3 weekday sessions cancelled, and that's so Robert has more than one consecutive day of not teaching. Because if you look at my calendar, you'll see there's never more than one day in between everything, and I need time to do things. But what that leaves you with is, let's say you're on the meditation course, you've still got 15 live stream meditation classes a month, which I don't believe you get anywhere else. So that's that. Oh, we've got some folk have arrived. That's Caroline and Dave. Hi, Dave. Okay. So today, how to calm your mind. Right. So meditation calms your mind, and the way that it calms your mind is that you're training your brain to respond in a very specific way. You're training it, the subconscious part of your brain, of your mind and your brain, through repetition. And that's how we learn everything, through repetition. So it's like learning to ride a bike, juggling, writing, everything. So you do it over and over again. Gentle repetition trickles into the brain, and eventually it becomes a habit. And what a habit is something that you can do subconsciously. So driving is a habit. When you get in the car, you're chatting to the passenger, you're working with the abstract concepts that the conversation brings up, memories, ideas, so on and so forth, and your language centres are busy chatting to the passenger, and your body's automatically driving the car. To calm the mind, what we need is a set of practices that intervene, that first of all, that help us notice that the mind's not calm, and second, that enable us to intervene in the cycle of the mind. And the cycle of the mind is largely the thoughts, emotions, physiology. So your awareness, when you're, let's say you've got a state of mind. Let's say that state of mind is some sort of unsatisfactoriness. It's fear or doubt or shame or guilt or anger or whatever it might happen to be. Your awareness will be aware of all of these things going on in your body. It will be aware of the emotion, and emotion is a signal from the body to your awareness. So it's a message from the mind. If there's a dialogue, that's the same thing. The brain, the mind, is sending the awareness messages. And the awareness is aware of all of this, and then the body becomes aware of what the awareness is aware of. It's a cycle. It goes round. And so when it's in a stress state, it's, generally speaking, anxiety, stress and worry. And either one of those can trigger the other two, and so it goes round and round and round. So there's kind of two elements to this. One element is learning these things that I call intervention practices, intervention techniques. And so whenever we do a breathing exercise, essentially that's an intervention technique. When you're learning to relax, that's an intervention technique. It takes a while with something like relaxation. Relaxation is a hugely important part of all of this. It takes a while, vary from individual to individual, to get to the point where you can release the tension from your body reasonably incrementally and let it all go. And that's one of the key ways that stress is retained in the body, so that's intervened with. It's an intervention in that stress, which it intervenes in the cycle, stress, worry and anxiety. The other intervention is with the breath, and the breath practice is what we're doing is we're pushing our physiology into relaxation. So that's actually all about relaxation. And then the other thing is actually the thoughts themselves. And this is the thing that everybody's journey is going to be slightly different. The practices that you use to intervene in thought worry being an unhelpful example of that. All of those practices, that's the main part of the journey. If you stick with meditation, at some point, I promise you, you'll be able to silence the thoughts. It's only a matter of time. It doesn't come about by wanting to silence the thoughts. So this is the paradox, conundrum of the mind that's such an important part of it, of understanding the mind. The mind will pretty much do the opposite of what you want. You know, don't think of pink elephants. Mind fills with pink elephants. You know, I must remember this person's name. Don't remember their name. You know, the mind is working. It's not working against you per se, but it's actually designed for a different universe, and what it's doing is doing all of the things that apply to that universe, which is living in nature in your tribe, and instead we've got this universe here. So what it's doing it's not trying to self-sabotage you per se, although it might seem like that sometimes. But what it is doing, it has a different agenda. You know, one of the things I've pointed out a few times is that your brain and body, your physiology, your genetic blueprint just wants you to get up, walk out of here, go into nature and live with a group of people that you love and who love you in nature, and that's it. You don't need anything, don't want anything, you don't want cars, yachts, foreign holidays, any of that. That's what you want to do. And if you don't think so, look at what your mind does and notice it's trying to force you to do that all the time. And when you see that, you think, oh, all right then, that's what it wants me to do. It's not possible for, I've done a bit of research into the commune thing, and there's a couple of communes that have kind of survived. When you think of the millions of people that have tried it and failed, it's pretty much impossible for modern human beings to leave all of their baggage behind and go and live in that environment. So, you know, it doesn't work. So what we need to do is we need to recognise what the brain and the mind want and work towards giving it to them as closely as possible in our environment, in our community connection. Right at the top of the list, connection with nature, connection with others, connection with the self, connection with the present moment. So that's all kind of quite abstract, although what I've done is I've covered the intervention practices. So this is the breathing techniques and the relaxation practices. So understand why just sitting down and noticing your breath on its own, it benefits at so many different levels. And one of them is your ability to move your focus away from the magnetic pull of the compelling, intensive thoughts into the present moment and to the breath. And then how that benefits you, because you're aware of the breath, your breath then becomes more beneficial, and you're intervening in. So this is why you're intervening in the stress response, and this is why something like following the breath is so hugely powerful. And one of the reasons that I don't, for instance, teach things like mantra meditation. Mantra meditation's a good thing. It's not bad. For people with really busy minds, it's great, because basically what you're doing is you're using your own mind to drown out your mind. But at some point we need to come away from that into the present moment and let the thoughts run, and then get familiar and comfortable with them. So, yeah. So as to actually reducing the sound, the noise that the mind generates it's a yet another paradox, is that the closer you get to thought, the calmer it becomes. It's actually the process of looking internally at the origin of thought, looking at thought, observing it, witnessing it, focusing on it, that diminishes its power. And of course, depending on where the mind is, that might be a difficult process. So most meditations are set up in a soft and gentle way to allow us to kind of introduce ourselves to the nature of thought. And that's one of the reasons that I teach the noting practices so much now, because the feedback I've got tells me that that is a way of being aware of thought that makes it less edgy and sharp and difficult to work with the thoughts, especially when they're powerful and compelling and unhelpful. So I'd say that even if you're somebody who, for instance, needs to do things like counting the breath or a mantra meditation to calm your mind, do those to calm the mind, and then spend some time, and it doesn't have to be very long, a minute or two out of your 45-minute, 20-minute meditation practice, just noticing thoughts. Because I was able to silence my thoughts by looking for thought, opening myself up to thought, saying, right, come on in, I can prove it to you. What's the next thing you're going to think? Quick, what is it? What happens to the mind? Empty. That's an example of that. So that's the sharp end example of blankness, you know. Right, 1,000 divided by 753, blankness. Except for Bill, who's figured it out. There's always one. Okay, right. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start off with some intervention practices. Intervention practices are largely about the body. In fact, they are, because it's all about speed, and it's about ease of training. How easy is it to train a breathing meditation? How easy is it to train a relaxation meditation? Relatively easy. And when we want to intervene in that cycle, negative feedback cycle, this is how it's done. Or we're using the exhale. You know. And I find myself doing this all the time. A lot of people sigh, right? That's what they're doing, is they're moving their physiology into a more relaxed state with a single breath. So we're going to start with the intervention practices, and then we're going to have a little look. So, if you want to get yourselves comfortable, everybody's meditated, so there we go. And I'll begin the meditation with a bell. Let's put it here, so you can hear it online. It's essentially listening to sound and focusing on sound and the movement of that sound through time. That's an intervention practice as well, as is focusing on the breath, but at a lower level. Generally speaking, we want to regulate the breath. And so it's all part of the training to intervene in the stress cycle, to associate all of these things. So association of present moment awareness becomes association with the breath, becomes association with the posture, becomes association with recognition of tension and releasing it. And so because we do all of these things together, it becomes a bundle of practices: posture, focus, breath, awareness, that help to move us from stress, worry and anxiety to calmness, focus and relaxation. And the posture is particularly useful because it's just like the breath, it can be done in a moment. And it's a process of finding the most comfortable place for your head, just putting your elbows by the side. Tongue against the sharp part of the bottom teeth. Allowing the belly to rise and fall as it fills up. And empties on each successive breath. Placing the thumbs and forefinger tips gently in contact also helps us to relax. And being aware of sound, which is ideal in this space because sound down in the street is just distant traffic. And staying aware of that sound and its progress through time. And the movement of the belly progressing through time. We do that by noticing the entire breath. So kind of aware of the in-breath and aware of the out-breath. So the in-breath we could say in the mind rising, and on the out-breath we can say in the mind falling. Rising, falling. And then what we want to be aware of is the entire in-breath And you can either notice the belly or you can move your attention over to the breath in the nostrils. So if you're noticing the entire in-breath with the nostrils, the beginning of the in-breath, we're noticing the bottom of the nostrils, the point where the air enters and leaves. And throughout the in-breath, what we're doing is moving up the nostrils, our awareness, and then conversely on the out-breath, down the nostrils, what I do is I focus on the left nostril as I breathe in, starting from the bottom right up to the top, and I breathe out. I focus on the right nostril, starting at the top up by the eye, and moving my awareness down to the point where the air leaves the nostril. So although that's a kind of 2 seconds, 5 seconds, whatever it happens to be, process, what we're doing is just noticing the tiniest moment as it moves through that process. What we're going to do is the simplest pranayama there is, which is just extending the out breath by making it ever so slightly audible to yourself. So you don't do it on the in-breath, you just breathe in normally. And on the out-breath, constricting the throat, the roof of the mouth, the nostrils, wherever it happens to be. And we're just making the out-breath audible. And that just extends it. Just extends the out-breath. And then we're moving over to noticing the out-breath moving through time. So all the in-breath is something that brings us from one out-breath to another. And so this is the center of our focus, the center of our attention. The two things will happen. One is that the mind will wander from time to time, completely, so you actually forget about the practice. And you'll notice, oh, I'm practicing, focusing on the breath. So you just return your attention to it. And that's an important part of the process, the forgetting that you're meditating. Your mind is off in some scenario. That's one thing that happens. The other thing that will happen is you'll become aware of the thoughts and aware of the emotions and the physiology and the mind, state of mind. And you're kind of noticing it happening. There you are, noticing the out-breath, and in the background there's chitter-chatter of the mind on its subject of choice for the present moment, whatever that might happen to be. And this is where the mantra comes in, and it becomes very useful. So the self-compassion mantra, the one that I focus on the most for a whole lot of reasons, which consists of 3 statements. May I be well. May I be happy. May I find peace of mind. And you can repeat that on successive out-breaths. So now you're aware of the out-breath. First out-breath, may I be well. Second out-breath, may I be happy. Third out-breath, may I find peace of mind. And all the compassion here is directed to the thoughts, the originator of the thoughts. The I that is doing the thinking, the thinker. That I, may I be well. May I be happy. May I find peace of mind. We're directing compassion to the origin of the thoughts, even if they're unhelpful. In fact, especially if they're unhelpful. So if you'll just let your mind be free. Now you're just aware of what's happening in the present moment. And you're allowing the mind. So it can worry, or it can repeat the narrative that it repeats, and what it's focused on as well. So it could focus internally, it might be a scenario, it might be how you feel, focus externally, whatever sounds there are, coolness and warmth of the body, your level of comfort, your level of alertness, tiredness, all of these elements of the present moment. The mind can choose whatever it notices. If it chooses unhelpfulness, use the self-compassion mantra. May I be well. May I be happy. May I find peace of mind. So you're sending compassion to the origin of your focus, whatever the mind's decided to focus on. That's the part of yourself that you're sending compassion to. So what we're going to do now is move over to the noting practices. And if at any point the mind gets confused, it gets busy, unhelpful, noisy, whatever it happens to be, you can move over to the self-compassion mantra as a way of releasing any resistance in the process. And we'll start with the basic noting practice, noting the breath rising and falling. So as you breathe in, you can either notice the belly or the nostrils for this. Whatever's convenient, comfortable for you. Breathing in, saying in the mind, rising. Breathing out, saying in the mind, falling. Rising, falling. And while this is happening, thoughts will arise. And when thought arises, we note the thought. And the softest, gentlest, most frictionless way to do that is when thought arises, we note it on 2 separate out-breaths. Saying in the mind, thinking, second out-breath, thinking. So noting breath, rising, falling. Thought arises, all we're doing is acknowledging it. 2 separate out-breaths, repeating in the mind, thinking, thinking. Back to noting the rising and falling, rising, falling, rising, falling. And thoughts arise, thinking, thinking. And at any point you wish, you can move over to the self-compassion mantra. For as long as you wish, may I be well, may I be happy, may I find peace of mind. This is noting the breath, noting thoughts with self-compassion. Doesn't matter if the mind wanders. Doesn't matter if you slip into a half sleepy state. If you do sort of drift away into the sleepy state, it's more beneficial to stay there. Still aware of the breath, but allow the mind a little waking dream to unfold while you're aware that you're here and it's happening. This is the hypnagogic meditation. If the mind wanders away, coming back to awareness is actually it's all part of the process. It's supposed to wander. So when it does, it's doing what's needed and you're noticing it, and it's just a gentle awareness, oh, the mind has wandered. And then back to noticing the breath. Might help you to reconnect to the body, the physiology first, and then back to noting the breath and noting thought. Remembering to notice thought on the out breath, 2 separate out breaths. Just note it, thinking. And now what we're doing is waiting for thought. And when a thought arises, if we recognize it, say in the mind repeating, and you can do that on 2 out breaths if you wish, just saying in the mind repeating, repeating. If you don't recognize it or you're not sure, saying in the mind fleeting, fleeting. So you can be aware of the breath, you can be aware of sound, the body, it doesn't matter, as long as it's a present moment experience and you're waiting for thought to arise. And this is one way that we become aware of the origin of thought, the source of thought. And as soon as a thought pops up, we want to get in there very, very quickly. A guess is better than a considered choice. Doesn't matter if you get it wrong. It's about the process, not the choice. There's no right or wrong. Just waiting for thought. If you recognize it, repeating. If you don't recognize it or you're not sure, fleeting. And then straight back to the origin of thought instantly. And then connecting to the body through the breath and the sensation of sitting. Notice if any tensions crept into your posture, your body. Generally it will have during meditation. It just creeps in a little bit. So we, from time to time, we check in with the physiology. Let that tension out on the out breath. Noticing whichever part of the body it is, might be the shoulders, might be the head. Adjust the posture. Looking for comfort throughout. The more comfortable you are, the less muscular skeletal tension there is. And notice that there's a very light awareness. These practices lighten often, not always, but often lighten the awareness. And so you can maintain that lightened awareness and find it during your day as a way of calming the mind. Just noticing the sensation of the breath rising and falling, and noticing sound moving through time. and sound moving through the time of the bell, sound of the bell. Okay. Right. So that the sort of experience that everything from, quite frustrating because the mind chatters away, gets in the way at one end, and at the other end is sleepy time. Sleepy? Yeah, I think sleepy. and the air conditioning's on, so it's quite cool, you know. So it's actually an interesting. Why sleepy? Because what you're doing is going to the origin of thought, and the thoughts in the awareness part of the mind, in the space of the mind, that's what keeps you awake. So sometimes, of the two strategies for getting to sleep, I mean, there's a whole bundle of things that you can do sleep management, but assuming your sleep hygiene and your sleep management's okay, and it comes down to the mind, really it's about relaxation, or it's about this, what we're doing now, which is looking, yeah, they're the thoughts, where are they coming from? And that last practice, that's what it does, is it directs your attention at the origin of thoughts, because you want to know whether it's a fleeting or a repeating thought, so you're scrutinizing it. And then, so those two things happen, the mind wanders and you drift in and out of sleepiness and stuff like that. And that doesn't matter, because when you're going through your day, what you actually want is to be alerted by the mind when it's off on one. So you want to have that experience during your meditation. So you notice. Following the breath is known as anapanasati, the practice of remembering. What you're remembering you're here. Sati is remembering. It was changed to mindfulness because the translator thought that if we called it remembering practice, people would assume it's some sort of memory exercise. Okay, so that's it for today. So have a fantastic weekend, everybody online. Nice to have you with us, Matt. And Caroline. Caroline's sleepy. Good. Have a nice sleepy weekend. Bless you all. And let's just finish this stream. There we go.